Donald Trump has formally declared that Antifa is a terrorist organization, a domestic terrorist organization. He signed the executive order last night, and the implications for this country, well, it may be the most impactful move we have seen in 150 years. Trump is challenging those in this country at the highest levels to call him out, to fall in line or otherwise. I believe this is a true test for the United States. And I believe that there is a very real threat of civil war. Now, of course, I'm the guy who talks about it quite a bit, but I will caveat this with, I'm bringing this up only because I have, I think, like 7 articles that have been written in the past week or so detailing the either ongoing or soon-to-be civil war, with The Hill stating Charlie Kirk's assassination may be our Fort Sumter. Bit of a bold statement, but there's a reason why I think this is the ultimate test for the United States. Many people are wondering why Donald Trump hasn't gone and arrested, say, Hillary Clinton. Because Trump only has the authority he has through confidence in his position. That is to say, if people fear that his move would be outside of the norms of society, they will defy him. And the moment they do that, the emperor has no clothes. In order for Trump to enact his agenda, there has to be a slow and gradual process by which people get arrested, charges are brought. Once it's become expected and normalized, then Trump can order individuals to make these arrests. To put it simply, if the first thing Trump did when he got in office was tell an FBI agent, go arrest Hillary Clinton, the agent would likely say, no, I quit. Then there would be a public display. The news reporting FBI agents defy Donald Trump, refused to adhere, and the narrative would be, and the confidence would be gone. People would say, don't follow Trump. But what if Trump waits a year? What if there's an assassination? What if he declares Antifa a terrorist organization? They respond with terror. He makes several arrests, and then it becomes normalized. Then, once you have people going out and making the arrests of certain political figures, then he says, here's the DOJ indictment on Hillary Clinton. Then it is just one extra degree for the individual to say, okay, Mr. President, and make that arrest. But I'll break this down, and we're going to go through all the details that we have because there's a big story here. And I'll explain in detail what I mean by confidence in a system and seriously, like how money works even relates to this. Before we get started, though, my friends, we got some great sponsors. We've got Tax Network USA. Let me pull this one up for you guys. If you're stressed about back taxes, maybe you missed the April deadline, or your books are a mess, don't wait. The IRS is cracking down. Penalties add up fast, 5% per month, up to 25% just for not filing. But there's help. Tax Network USA can take the burden off your shoulders and stop the spiral before it gets worse. They've helped thousands of Americans, whether you're an employee, a small business owner, or haven't filed in years. Messy books, no problem. They've seen it all and know exactly how to clean it up. With direct access to powerful IRS programs and expert negotiators on your side, Tax Network USA knows how to win. You'll get a free consultation, and if you qualify, they may even be able to reduce or eliminate what you owe. More importantly, they'll help protect you from wage garnishment or bank levy, so don't wait for the next IRS letter. Check out tnusa.com/Tim to talk to a real expert or call 1-800-958-1000. Take the pressure off. Let Tax Network USA help you. But we've got another great sponsor, my friends. It is Beam Dream. Go to shopbeam.com/Timcast. Use promo code Timcast. Get to 35% off Beam Dream. Delicious, healthy, hot cocoa right before bed. Helps you sleep. I've been drinking this nonstop for like the past 2 months. My sleep has never been better. I got proof. I showed you guys last night. My sleep score was 100. It was 96 last night. Hey, you can't get a 100 every single time, but no joke. So I have like one of those fancy mattresses. Tracks your sleep, deep sleep. Your deep sleep and your REM is when your body is producing HGH and the hormones you need. For guys, that's testosterone. So you want to get good sleep. Now, Beam Dream's got melatonin, magnesium, L-theanine. That's why I'm drinking it every single night before bed. I didn't even realize my sleep could improve. I was doing like the high 80s, low 90s. Now I'm getting to like 96 to 100 all the time. It's amazing. Now, here's the thing. I used to wake up in the middle of the night and I'd get merciless cramps. It was brutal, especially if I was working out through the day. I didn't know why. Totally gone. And I think it was the magnesium. So this stuff is absolutely incredible. I have been, as I mentioned, drinking it every single night. I recommend you guys try it out if you need help sleeping. I didn't even know I could sleep better. Go to shopbeam.com/Timcast. I don't even need to read their script. Beam, you guys are awesome. Cinnamon cocoa flavor. I like the brownie batter. Cinnamon cocoa is my favorite, but I drank it all. So now I'm doing the brownie batter, but I put cinnamon in it. Anyway, check out Shop BAM. Let's get to the news here. We've got this from Politico. Trump issues promised terrorist organization designation for Antifa. The move paves the way for investigations into the radical left, which Trump blames for Charlie Kirk's death. They say the new order would require his administration to investigate, disrupt, and dismantle individuals and groups associating themselves with the anti-fascist ideology Antifa, including against those who fund such operations. Now, here is the Donald J. Trump fact sheet. We can break this down. Designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. Today, President Trump signed an order to designate Antifa as a domestic terror organization. The order notes that Antifa is a militarist anarchist enterprise that calls for the overthrow of the U.S. government, law enforcement authorities, and our system of law using illegal means, including violence and terrorism, to accomplish these goals. The order directs the federal government to investigate, disrupt, and dismantle all illegal operations conducted by Antifa or any person claiming to act on behalf of Antifa. It also calls for investigating, disrupting, and dismantling the funding sources behind such operations. Antifa engages in coordinated efforts to obstruct enforcement of federal laws with the goal of achieving policy objectives by coercion and intimidation. He states, Antifa has engaged in armed standoffs with law enforcement, organized riots, violently assaulted ICE and other law enforcement officers, and engages in routine doxing of political figures and activists, threatening public safety. ICE officers are now facing a 1,000% increase in assaults against them. An Antifa-affiliated group in Portland doxed ICE officers, published their names, pictures, and personal addresses online. A journalist was violently assaulted by Antifa protesters while reporting on a protest in Portland. That's Andy No. Using pepper spray, baseball bats, and tasers, Antifa members violently attacked Trump supporters during a Patriot March in Pacific Beach, California. They go to mention restoring law and order, Trump's statements, and otherwise. Now, the question is, what is Antifa? Let me just give you the simple version. Antifa does not simply mean anti-fascist. That is the manipulation and the lie. You'll notice this is why people like Hassan Piker and other liberals are not saying they swear to Antifa. Hassan Piker has a video where he says, I am an anti-fascist. Anti-fascist is a generic term that just means you oppose fascism to some degree. It does typically mean you align in a certain way with some groups. We get that, but it's generic. Antifa is a proper noun referencing the World War II era communist anti-fascist action, or Antifa for short, that fought physically against the Nazis. Now, by all means, we don't like Nazis, but Antifa was the militant wing of the Communist Party, so they get no special considerations either. In the United States, Antifa is a symbol and a decentralized group that does have leaders. The strategy of the left largely is to obfuscate who those leaders are so that it becomes difficult for law enforcement. Antifa individuals will wear all black and masks, making it difficult for law enforcement to prosecute. In the event an Antifa associate engages in a criminal behavior and is arrested, the goal is, during the criminal trial, the prosecutor will say, this man did it. The officer will say, that man did it. And the defense will say to the officer, what was he wearing? He was wearing all black. Indeed. How many others were wearing all black? I don't know, several hundred. And the defense can then look to the jury and say, so do you not find reasonable doubt? How could the officer know he grabbed the right guy if everyone looks the exact same? And the jury goes, that's reasonable doubt. And they'll say, my client didn't do it. Now they're lying because they're evil. But that's the game they play. They exploit our laws and find loopholes to destroy our system. Why? They exist outside of it. The system we have in this country exists for those who believe in it and are willing to play fair. These people are not. The ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, how do they define what Antifa is? A decentralized leaderless movement composed of loose collections of groups, networks, and individuals. False. There are leaders. I have been at these meetings. I was at Occupy Wall Street. I was at the subsequent far left Black Bloc Antifa protests from probably 2011 until maybe 2018, 2019 maybe. 2018 or so, I think Berkeley and Portland were some of the last ones I went to. I have seen their meetings. I know their strategies, and I know how they plan these things. They have something called a diversity of tactics. They ask normie liberals to come join the rally and respect the diversity of tactics. That means if people are violent, don't interfere. The people on the far left wear all black intentionally. It's called the black bloc tactic. They do this so that, as I already mentioned, it's difficult to prosecute. They also do it so that individuals can de-arrest, attack cops, and it's hard to figure out who did it. But they have leaders. At all of these meetings, someone is in charge. They're lying when they say it's leaderless. The reason they want to convey that idea is they want to make it difficult for law enforcement to figure out who's organizing and setting these things up. But of course, somebody chose a date. Somebody made the flyer. Someone told people where to be. Now, often they'll say it's a collection of individuals who have volunteered up those services, and sometimes that is true. But when you go into these direct action meetings, they call them, there are people standing up and there are people sitting down. And the people standing up are the leaders who are in charge. We call them the tourists. That's what we called them back in the day. Because you'd see the exact same people at every single different event. Why, you'd be in Portland at an Antifa cell with a unique name, but there was the same guy that you saw in New York or Texas or Long Beach or Chicago. Weird how that works. They explained this to us explicitly. During Occupy Wall Street, these people, the facilitators, they called themselves, explained, if you have a visible leader, the federal government will frame them, character assassinate, or arrest. Therefore, they make sure they appear leaderless. But of course, leaderless is an impossibility. There has to be someone buying tools, building shields, handing out weapons, telling people where to go. Not all of it. Sometimes it's a cult and they just know what to do and how to do it. That is, they show up without any explicit leadership telling them to show up. But someone made the flyers. Someone planned the dates. Someone told them how to behave. What's really happening is the leaders are limiting communication to obfuscate leadership and bypass law enforcement. Now, here's where I say comes the ultimate test. First, Google's guidelines on violent criminal organizations. The president has now stated that Antifa, which has a logo, some of these organizations, some of these cells sell merch. They're terrorists. YouTube says they'll ban you. You can't praise it. You can't post it. You can't memorialize. You can't even produce it if you are a far-left Antifa guy. The question now, will YouTube start banning and removing this content? Let me continue. Here's X. There's no place on X for violent or hateful entities, including but not limited to terrorist organization, violent extremist groups. I'm pretty sure Elon Musk has asserted something to this effect as it pertains to Antifa. Let me just double check, actually. I didn't look this up. Let's see what he said about Antifa. Let's see. Elon Musk. Oh, interesting. There's a couple of them, actually. Let's pull these up. Let's see what I find. Elon Musk reposted Data Republican. Alliance for Global Justice is basically one giant RICO-like structure for Antifa. If anyone is in the administration and is listening, start there. Elon Musk reposted Charlie Kirk killer active in Antifa. I haven't looked through all of Elon Musk's X posts, but I'm sure he said something to that effect. The question is, will X start taking down these Antifa-aligned profiles and posts? Meta says the same thing. They don't allow terrorist organizations, so they also ban them. TikTok, the same thing. Violent extremist entities are not allowed on the platform. Now, to the question. Will these big tech platforms see what Donald Trump has ordered and apply it to their existing rules structure? The move that Donald Trump made in designating Antifa a terror organization formally is one of the most dangerous things he can do right now. And it is Trump's gambit that they will treat it seriously. And if they don't, he's going to lose bigly. But I'll explain why. In the opening to this portion of the show, I pointed out everything is built on confidence. Many people want Trump to go and arrest Hillary Clinton or Schiff and these other Democrats. He hasn't. Pam hasn't. Here's why. If the first thing Donald Trump did was instruct the arrest or criminal investigation of someone like Hillary Clinton, they would defy him. And when they did, the message would be clear and the narrative set. Trump is not in control. What would likely happen is that is too far beyond the norms of what one expects with an administration or a U.S. government. So you likely would get some law enforcement people being like, look, I don't want to be involved in this. And whether it was a resignation or outright defiance, the media would report the FBI is refusing to carry out Trump's orders. They've done things like this in the past, don't get me wrong. Trump wants to make sure when he makes these moves, they are made with the confidence of the people around him. Money, for instance, what is it? It's confidence. Government is simply confidence. We all agree the government has the power. But what happens when people don't agree the government has the power? Then they don't. I've made this point before about what happens when people find law enforcement to be illegitimate. Let's just, I tell people to imagine it like this. This is what I said a couple years ago under Biden, the things he was doing. He was really putting this to the test. Let's say that a man knocks on your door in a clown costume. And you say, who is it? And he goes, clown enforcement. You'd say, okay, I don't know, you leave. And they say, I have a warrant to search your property. You'd say, I'm not opening the door for a guy in a clown costume. You're not a cop. Well, why not? He's showing you a warrant. He says he's clown law enforcement. Now, I use clown as an example because it's easy. You get it. No, there's no clown law enforcement. What happens when a federal law enforcement guy shows up to your house and the same way you felt about the clown, you feel about him? He knocks on the door and says, open up, I've got a warrant. You say, who are you? And he goes, federal law enforcement. You say, I don't care. I don't recognize your authority. You may as well be a clown. That is what happens to a country when there is no confidence in that law enforcement endeavor. People will say, you can't do this. You have no right. Trump's move on Antifa has just opened the door in that regard. Are they terrorists? That means a lot. That means these social media platforms must immediately begin to remove people who memorialize, advocate for, defend, support, or claim to be a part of Antifa. What if they don't? If the collective social media infrastructure of this country tells Trump your order does not mean anything, that's big. Now, what happens there, I don't know, but it basically says that big tech infrastructure has no fear of government reprisal for defying Trump's orders. They don't take his orders seriously, and they will not apply Trump's actions to their policies. They would be telling the federal government they will allow terrorists to organize and propagandize and recruit on their platforms. That is a bold undertaking. I'm not convinced these social media platforms will actually start removing Antifa. It's a powerful test for Trump's authority. Now, Trump may begin targeting these groups and arresting them, and then big tech may fall in line. But one big story we've seen already is that Google is now admitting, this just broke earlier, the Biden admin forced them to censor conservatives. Are they going to have similar fears of Donald Trump? If Donald Trump says it's a terror organization, and YouTube, for instance, says, don't know, don't care, we're going to allow it, think about what that means as to how they perceive the authority of the Biden administration and the authority of the Trump administration. They outright said, Biden forced us to censor people. If Trump says this and they say no, they're basically saying Trump's trying, but we do not fear the Trump administration at all. There will be no enforcement. So, what do you guys think? Comment, I genuinely mean it. Do you believe that law enforcement, local, federal, state, and infrastructure will begin to actually treat Antifa like terrorists? Let's put it like this. What would happen if a group of men with guns in an open carry state, I'm not going to do anything illegal, were flying the ISIS flag and running through the streets with masks on and black hoods, camo, guns, flying the ISIS flag? What do you think would happen? Yeah, they're going to get arrested. They're going to get stopped. There's going to be panic. Will this country react the same way to Antifa? I don't think so. I don't think so. So we'll see how this plays out. But the question then remains, civil war. If the infrastructure in this country tells Donald Trump his authority is nil, what does that mean for the confidence in the existence of this system? Who do you follow and who do you adhere to? If the National Guard defies Trump's orders and sides with Gavin Newsom, I don't know that we're there yet, but the fight is actually happening in the courts. If local law enforcement says we are not going to charge people with terrorists for being far leftists, if in any way our infrastructure continues to bifurcate, now we don't know that it has at this level just yet, then you're going to have leftists saying Trump is illegitimate. I'm safe where I live. You have the hallmarks of civil war. The Hill writes, Charlie Kirk's murder could become another Fort Sumter. They say the column raises and answers three questions crucial to America's political future. First, what are the consequences, intended and otherwise, of the blatant murder of Charlie Kirk? Second, is the far right or far left more responsible for political violence and murder in the U.S.? Third, suppose Kirk were a Democrat with similar influence as he had with the GOP, how might Republicans have reacted to his murder? If a right-wing guy shot and killed Hassan Piker at a university, the right would condemn it in 2 seconds. There would be mass riots, but the right would be saying it was wrong. How do I know this? When George Floyd died, even Ben Shapiro said it was wrong. Ben Shapiro being, of course, one of the most prominent conservative personalities. They go on to say the repercussions of the slaying of Turning Point CEO and rising MAGA star Charlie Kirk will fester for a while. On the one hand, over time, they could dissipate. On the other, this could be a 21st century equivalent of the firing on Fort Sumter. In that case, if it occurs, it will not be two armies marching to battle. It'll be far more complicated politically, socially, and culturally. Already, Trump is using Kirk's killing a bludgeon with which to strike at the left and Democrats holding both responsible for his death. Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller has gone so far as to call the Democratic Party extremist, implying it was a terrorist organization. Trump has also declared Antifa a domestic terrorist organization, something that the law does not allow him to do, and that he has no standing to do. They're going to mention, for example, Timothy McVeigh, who killed hundreds in the Oklahoma City bombing, was convicted of murder, not domestic terrorism, which is not an actual basis for a criminal charge. That is false. There are many terroristic charges that have existed since then, especially after 9/11. Take a look at Illinois. How this plays out remains to be seen. They're going to say regarding right and left-wing extremists using political violence over the last 50 years, excluding September 11th, a Cato Institute study shows the right wing was responsible for 391 inspired murders, the left 65. Despite the stats, Trump continues to assert the left-wing extremism is responsible not only for Kirk's murder, but for most of the politically inspired violence in this country. Now let's pause and break this down. The Cato Institute used prison violence. Stupid. It incorporates overt white supremacists into the conservative movement. Literally makes no sense. But more importantly, murder isn't the only factor. As it pertains to all political violence, Antifa goes around beating people. Andy No didn't die. They don't count that as a political murder. More importantly, as Steven Crowder pointed out, shout out to the Mug Club, the assassination, I just should say the murder of Aaron Danielson was not considered leftist extremism, despite the man being an overt communist who said, we got a Trump supporter over here, and then shot him twice in the chest. So that study is BS. They go on to say denying that right-wing extremism is more dangerous than left-wing extremism, as this in essence is a critique of MAGA base, is to dismiss the truth to attack the so-called enemy. This argument makes literally no sense and does not apply. It doesn't matter to me or to the function of this who is more responsible. All that matters is there are two factions who believe the other side is evil. The insertion into this article about Fort Sumter is meaningless. What about Kirk's alleged murderer, Tylen Robinson? They go on and then blah, 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 blah. The real question is whether Kirk's death will have a lasting impact like George Floyd led to violent incidents that occurred over the ensuing weeks. My fear is that Kirk's killing could lead to the kind of violence that took place during the BLM protests, but on steroids. I hope I'm wrong. It won't be the right. It'll be the left. Already. It was like right after George Floyd died, this happened. Nothing's happened. The right's not rioting. They held a vigil. Erica Kirk said she forgave the killer. From Compact Mag, Charlie Kirk and the New Civil War. From U.S. Carry, this is 5 days before Charlie Kirk's assassination. Will there be another civil war in America? From the Center for Strategic International Studies, is the U.S. headed towards a civil war? From KPBS 65, San Diego political expert details steps that could lead U.S. to civil war. And then this. Anti-Trump shooter targeted Kash Patel and Pam Bondi. DOJ says they're next. I'm sorry, DOJ says, quote, they're next. The DOJ wasn't threatening them. They were pointing out that the shooter had this message. He was an anti-Trumper. There's so much more. Let me see if I can pull this one up. Scott Jennings forwards Keith Olbermann threat to FBI after former MSNBC host warns he's next. That's right. Keith Olbermann outright said, "You're next, mother effer, but keep mugging to the camera." He deleted these posts and then reposted something saying, "Your career is next." We know what Keith Olbermann meant. We're not playing these games. After the death of Charlie Kirk, all of these accounts across social media were posting, "You're next, Tim Pool," as well as many other prominent conservatives I will leave unnamed because I don't want to draw more attention to those who are already receiving death threats. Keith Olbermann was simply tweeting what liberals have been tweeting at me and many others. So there is no reality where "your next mother effer" implies I meant you'd lose your job. Why? Did a prominent conservative lose their job? How would he be next if there's not a first? Unless he's talking about the murder of Charlie Kirk. And that's what he was talking about. I think it's an absurdity to assume otherwise. So therein lies that question. Could there be a civil war in this country? Yes. It's a really interesting AI photo they have of guys with red hats and guns and people in Antifa gear with guns pointing away from each other. I don't know that it will happen. I don't know that we will actually see a civil war or anything like that, but let me just stress right now, Nexstar has announced that they are joining Sinclair and they will refuse to air Jimmy Kimmel Tonight. Jimmy Kimmel has done nothing to justify being returned. The affiliates are still saying no. Advertisers haven't said a peep. So why did they bring Jimmy Kimmel back if the affiliates are still saying no? Did Jimmy Kimmel offer to do the show for free? Maybe, but there's no evidence suggesting that. Or could it be the terror attacks? The terror attack and the terror threats. One of the purported reasons, according to the Wall Street Journal, that they pulled this show was threats the studio received. And then a man, a leftist, anti-Trump, shot up an ABC affiliate, and several other affiliates received terroristic threats. It was so bad Sinclair had to pull the Charlie Kirk Memorial. Interesting. But Sinclair and Nexstar say they still will not air Jimmy Kimmel's show. We're at an impasse. I think the reality is that they're bringing back Jimmy Kimmel's show because of the terror threats. Trump has designated Antifa a terrorist organization. This means these people that Andy Ngo has reported on, who are threatening right now to kill him. In this video, an Antifa-aligned individual shoots photos of Andy Ngo and Charlie Kirk. This individual should be investigated, and I believe that Andy has already compiled more than enough evidence indicating he is a terrorist. He has engaged in crimes and should be arrested. The ultimate question in all of this, the test for the United States, will the infrastructure of this country, the businesses, fall in line behind Trump the same way they did behind Democrats? I'm not so convinced. Look at ABC. They are more terrified of leftist terror threats than the Trump administration. Trump didn't even threaten anything. But during the Biden admin, we already know this. Google admitted it. The Biden admin made them censor people. They were terrified. Okay. Will Google now start banning leftist accounts that are pro-Antifa? I bet you they won't. Because what they really fear is clear. Terrorism from the far left is a greater threat than Trump's law enforcement. And so long as that remains the case, they will defy Trump. The far left extremists will use that infrastructure to their benefit to organize. Trump must crush this. Legal law enforcement. I'm going to wrap it up there. Stay tuned. Smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. We have an interview coming up discussing the legal implications of this story as well as what happens in this country next. That'll be at 4 p.m. at rumble.com/theculturewar or youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all in the next segment.